All right, day 5. Holy fire, my friend. I am so excited with another incredible conversation, incredible human, our best-selling author, Ashleigh Kilcup. And let me tell you a little bit about Ashleigh. She helps driven professionals caught in overthinking. Who does that? Over operating and overwhelm to embrace their inner badass and lead and live with love. With over 17 years of commercial real estate expertise in architecture, brokerage, and development, I don't know how, you don't even look old enough. She has discerned what holds high performers back from becoming great leaders. Ashleigh's known for her refreshing candor, which you'll see for yourself, relatable humor, and inspiring, meaningful action. She lives in the Pacific Northwest, someplace I've always wanted to visit. So you'll have to invite me out sometime.
Yeah.
With her husband of over 15 years and 2 spirited young kiddos. Ashleigh, welcome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we do need to get you out here. It's so
Yeah.
gorgeous.
I've always wanted to see that region. And then when Twilight came out and Forks was a thing, I'm like, now I really want to see it.
That's unique. That is unique, that area. But yeah, likewise for Tennessee.
I have a new Airbnb, so you're welcome anytime, and
Oh, I
I'll
love
introduce you
that.
to the goats and whatnot. So listen, let's dive in because I want to know
Yeah.
a little bit about the difference between leadership coach and executive coach. Can you talk about the differences?
Yeah. So it's a question I get asked a lot, which is, so are you like an executive coach? And so the distinction that I make in that is I believe anyone can be a leader in any part of their life. Whereas executives often feels like it's reserved for people who have gotten there. And my goal is really to help people clear away what's holding them back from getting there. And so it's very different. I also think a lot of people that hold those positions aren't doing it as a leader by my definition. So those are kind of, I do like to make that distinction. And I realize that it probably sounds really similar, but they're different in my mind. And I think they're different in my client's mind because we talk about leadership at work, but also in your life. Because ultimately, our lives don't know how to stay in these perfect little silos like we would be told to. We soup around, right? So if you have stuff going on in your relationship or whatnot, it's like it's very hard to distinct and show up as your best self. And that's really ultimately what we're trying to do.
Oh, I love that distinction. And it just brought me back. It's been many, many years since I worked in the corporate sector, but when I did, we were often told, leave your personal baggage at the door.
Right.
And that's not easy to do. So I love that just very swift like tweak, and it
hmm
makes a big difference. Now, I know there's a story behind this. So how did you become a leadership coach?
Yeah, well, and just to say on what you said, also the I think it's important to know how to leave your baggage at the door. Because, like, I mean, as a coach, like we have to show up. I mean, there are times when I've got, my kids are going wild or something like that. And to be in that moment and professional, I do need to show up, but not at the door every day you go to work, right? We want to bring, I think what we need to bring back is that humanness
Yes.
of that's what's relatable. That's how we connect. That's what makes work feel meaningful beyond just getting cool stuff done. And yeah, so having to leave all that at the door is it's disowning a part of you, and that ultimately will start having a big rub.
Okay, so before you answer the how did you become
Yeah, yeah.
question, I've got to know because we're often told like you're not at work to make friends. So, how do you find that balance or blend of like the distinction between leaving my baggage at the door, between
hmm
being that person of empathy and humility and connection?
hmm Yeah,
So,
I mean, it's delicate, right? And so I think what the way I think about it is when we show up at work, it's not about airing out our baggage, but it is okay to say, oh, I'm dealing with a difficult thing here or there, right? That doesn't mean it turns into a 45-minute coffee conversation. And so, but owning sort of your authenticity around those things, or I've struggled with that too, rather than like, I'm your boss, so I'm supposed to be perfect and I'm not going to relate to. So it's really about empathy and showing up for other people. And you asked about my leadership journey. In a lot of ways, that was for me A very surprising role when I started stepping into it was realizing how much better it made me feel to help and hold space for other people. And we all get caught in our ego. I was just talking with my coach about something I got caught, in my own ego about, because she's wild and she likes to flare up, and she did. So, just realizing that we're all on our own journey, and showing up for other people is actually what fills our bucket up.
Yes, that was so true. And that coach sounds like my kind of lady.
Yeah, she got me good.
I love it. Thank you for explaining that, because I think when people walk into that environment, in that space, it's like, okay, I'm a little conflicted. I need to
Mhm.
leave my baggage at the door, but I also need to be, that kind of a human that can balance the productivity and the work that needs to get done versus being a human. And
Mhm.
that they're both important factors. So I know there's opportunity here for our listeners to connect with you and speak with you later on, but I've got to know your story. Like, how did you
Oh,
get
yeah.
this?
First of all, I want to go back to that compliment of not looking old enough. Thank you. I just stepped on, I have one of those fancy scales. I just stepped on it. I'm 40. I'm almost 41, like next week. And my metabolic age is 48 right now. So that I was feeling a little down on that. So yeah, my journey is I came up through architecture, and then I made a really unusual switch within my industry, and you'd really have to be in my industry to know it, but switching from architecture to brokerage is like one other person has done it that I know of, because they're entirely different parts of the industry with entirely different skill sets. But I did it on purpose. I had this epiphany moment as an architect. I was on a really cool team. We did amazing projects. I loved everything about it. I'm fortunate that I have always loved everything about what I've done. Uh, and I had this realization. I sat in enough meetings that we didn't have the power. Like I always said the best thing about being an architect was people telling people I was an architect. They swoon. It's so great, Even when I tell them I used to be an architect, they're like, "Oh, wow," and you're like, "Yeah, it's not that great." Um, but but I saw this moment where this partner that had been in the industry, 30 plus years, just got told, like, that's not what I said, do it different, from the owner. And I was like, oh my gosh, even if I battle it out up this ladder, then I will still be in that position. And I didn't want that. Now,
Mm,
that was a lot of my story going on inside of me, right? That I was very hungry for that power and that control and a lot of those pieces. And so I realized this path wouldn't get me there. So I made the switch over to brokerage. When I told the architects I had worked with for a long time, they said, I was nervous, right? Like, you think you're going to get the whole, like, oh, you can't cut it, blah, 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 blah. Instead, literally every one of them said a version of, I wish I would have realized that at your age.
oh,
And that was so, like, okay, I guess I'm moving in the right direction then. And I think also it was just a better match for my skill sets. So going from working with all men to brokerage, where there was literally 4 women in the city of Seattle that were doing this work, including me. And so, like, really alpha male environment. My ego, oh my gosh, she was out of control. To the point where I just basically burned myself out. I was trying to make everything so perfect that I was like, you know what? I just need to, like, and we were starting to get ready to think about having a family. And I'm like, I can't do this. And so I went to go work for a developer, which was super fun. And again, but my ego, like, I still couldn't calm her down. And it took lots of years of coaching to figure out what was going on there. And so then I realized in my own journey through all of that, once I got to the other side, and again, there's no there, I'm still doing my work, but is like, there's so much more power once you actually realize and can see what's going on, the patterns that are playing out, triggering in me that were causing me to respond in a certain way, and that I want to help other women decode that for themselves, because we do need more women climbing to the top. We need that for entrepreneurs, we need that inside companies. Like, we just need more of that to happen. And unfortunately, the way we're indoctrinated as women by society brings a lot of stuff up.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. And for me, I'm feeling that energy of like architect Ashleigh stepping into the brokerage space. That's really good noticing. And for me, I think a lot of, ambitious professionals and high performers are afraid to make that leap, knowing that the parachute will open, even if you're getting those gut nudges and saying, hey, maybe this is out of alignment. So from your professional, perspective, what is it that holds most of those like ambitious professionals back from their potential? This is huge.
Yeah. It's really a form of feeling like you're not enough unless you do everything. And so what ends up happening is, I call it like a resentment cycle. You take on more than you wanted to because you feel like you had to on some level. And then it will deplete your energy unless you have a proper way of maintaining your energy and positiveness like in a sustainable way. And then that has a backlash. So you have a bit of a down, a burnout, whatnot. Maybe you get sick, depending on how you recognize that pattern. But then it just starts over again. So we have to interrupt the pattern on how much are you taking on? Is it yours? And really get clear about, why do we feel like we need to do everything? Where is that coming from? Right? Because it's usually pretty deep down. And once we start peeling back the onion from that place, that's usually where we can start finding a more positive path forward.
So good. I love that. And I'm sure that confidence, right? Like that self-confidence, that's always going to be a critical component of reaching that potential. And this is not a fake it till you make it kind of a situation. I think
No.
kind of hard to do. I may be the oddball out here, but I also don't believe in self-accountability. I just don't think it works. So, in your opinion, what's the trick, if there is one, to building and not only building, but sustaining that self-confidence?
Yeah. Um, Confidence is an interesting thing. And I think, especially as women, because I mostly work with women, um, it's something that we need to have grace around, because we really, for a good portion of our adult lives, we cycle with the moon and there's different energies associated with that. And so rather than trying to be this high watermark, perfect performer version of you all the time, is really to own where you're at throughout your cycles. And I teach very much around giving yourself that period of rest and restoration during your cycle, because if you don't have the winter, right, then you can't just skip winter and hop into spring. It just doesn't work that way. And that compounding of that, because part of the process is we're supposed to let go of some stuff, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, like that presentation didn't go as well as I want, or I didn't mentor that person quite the way I wanted to, right? And like, own it, let it go, forgiveness, right? And that was a huge lesson for me in my journey. Was I used to have a post-it on my computer that said, learn to let it go. um the post-it didn't really help me, but it kept it front of mind. But it's
I
so funny because now that's like, so often that's what I work through with other women. And so there are ways to do that with different like coaching tools and energetically. But it is important for that piece. And then confidence is, where is it coming from? And this is where I think you go into, is it intrinsic or extrinsic? Are you confident because of the title you have, or the way people treat you, or that constant achieving? Or are you confident in who you are and the worth that you have innately as being a human, and the things that make you weird, and all the things, right? Like how you show up for others. And I think some of that comes back to self-trust. And how do you show up for yourself when no one's looking?
Mm.
'Cause you said that self-accountability, right? um I do think, yeah, I call it discipline. Like discipline equals freedom. And it's really that we're habit beings, right? So it's, if you can put things into a habit, occasionally you gotta, kind of remember why you do the thing, because it might not be as rewarding in that moment. But ultimately, building ourselves up that way is so much better. For I think maybe what you were referencing is like we all have blind spots.
Oh, for
And
sure. For
that's
sure.
where that's where, like, I have a coach. Like, I need someone who's going to show me, like, hey, that's great, you're doing that thing, and did you notice this? And of course I'm like, kind of. But it's good because that is how we go quicker, faster, like move through the crap faster. Or that negativity of like, oh, I didn't want to feel that way, and or I didn't want to show up that way. And
Oh my
so,
God.
yeah, like how quickly can we repair and learn from the cycle and move forward?
I love that. And I just want to say for the record, I don't want to derail this train here, but you are the first person that I've heard speak to the moon and the cycles. And
Mm,
lady, I mean, I have got to say here, there used to be back in the day something called the red tent.
yeah.
Yeah, all right. Tell us a little bit about that, because what I see here is as an ambitious professional, as a high achieving female, we are not meant to work the way that I think it was Henry Ford that created like the 9 to 5 workday.
Hmm.
Men and their hormones recycle every 24 hours. We're every
Hmm.
28 days for a reason.
Hmm.
So can you touch to how that impacts you as like a high performer? Just a little bit.
Yeah. Well, first of all, yes, Red Tent in that book. I love it
Bring
so
it
much.
back. Bring back the red
I
tent.
know. I just read it again because I read it like 20 some years ago. And then yeah, someone mentioned it to me and I was like, oh, I have that. And I just read it like maybe 2 months ago. And it's a great book. And
Yes.
so yeah, so understanding that we cycle with the moon is something that's so important for women. And when I went through like fertility stuff, we didn't have fertility issues, but I was working with an acupuncturist and she's like, oh, we have a protocol like for the like optimum health and da da da. And I'm like, I want the protocol. So she's the one who explained to me that we have 4 phases of our period, just like there's 4 phases of the moon, and they have different energies associated with them. So, and I always get, I think it's follicular, ovulation, luteal, and menstruation are the 4 phases, and there's different energies associated with them that have to do with what our body is creating. And there's just an energy around that yeah, there's hormones, yeah, that's going on, but there's also like more than that. And so this is actually something I backwards realized when I was a working corporate person. When I was in my ovulation, which is when you are just as yummy and sparkly as you could possibly be, I would always invite people out for coffee. Now typically the way it worked for me was it was like 2 weeks out, and then I was menstruating and my pants didn't fit and I
Oh
was
my.
miserable and I didn't want to talk to anybody. And I had to go to these coffees. And I actually realized it without knowing what was going on. I was like, I got to slow my roll. I need to invite people when I don't feel like it, because then when we schedule it 2 weeks out, I'll be this better version of myself. And then later I learned about the phases and I was like, oh my God, that's so funny.
Amazing.
Um, but yeah, for women, we do need to. And so, and most things, I mean, we know this, like, just because work was designed by men for men, and also for men who have someone at home to take care of all their life. And so I think that's a huge piece of the struggle that women deal with is, are you being a good, well, if you are in this role, but like, are you being a good wife and mother, and then also all the things that you do at work, and you don't want to be less than at work because you have these other roles, and at the same time those are sacred duties. And so how do you honor all of it and not, fall on the ground?
I love this. And we're not in 1954 anymore, people. Let's call
No.
a spade a spade. I will tell you, when my business retired my husband, I don't remember the last time I've cleaned a toilet. This man understands that like it's a partnership and it takes a village.
Yeah.
He's unique. Ashley, he stepped in and he does the cooking, the cleaning, the grocery shopping, the laundry, all of the things. And it's like he's in that what he calls domestic engineer role at this point
I love
because
that.
I'm in my zone. But I just love your approach because as a high achieving female, which if you're still listening, you are, it's important to know, like Ashley was saying, do I go out for coffee right now and then cancel in 2 weeks? she's not the type of coach who's going to say, it's pedal to the metal, balls to the
Right.
wall all month long. She's the person that's here to help you. Where can we tap in when those moments of glitter and sparkle are at their optimum? And then when is it time to dial it back a little bit where you can do kind of the behind the scenes, other type of work, and she'll help you fit all of this into gear. Now, Ashleigh, I know that we learn in reflection, not in the moment. And
Mhm.
the assessment that you brought today is an incredible tool as long as we're being honest with ourselves and honest with you. So, can you speak to the gift that you brought a little bit for our guests today?
Yes. So the gift is it's a self-confidence assessment, and it really just has these statements laid out, and you sit with them and just say like, is this true for me or not, or does that trigger something in me or not? And it's really just about opening up all the different ways that maybe our confidence isn't quite as high as we thought, because we all want to be this, you know, infallible version of ourselves, but that's not the truth. And part of growing is accepting who we are and where we are right now and where we want to grow. And so it's just for anyone to have to go through, because I think that journey of coming into who you are is the most spiritual and powerful journey that you can have. And not from a personality and ego standpoint, but like your soul, really like getting connected with that, and in the way that we're all connected, right? We're all human in this journey, and we need more of that coming to the table than, perfect like Instagram and all the perfection that's out there. We need to show up more in our realness and heal.
I love that so, so, so much. Listen, friends, that link to that assessment is literally right below this video. Do yourself a favor and take that. I can tell you before Ashleigh was in my world, I was that balls to the wall, pedal to the metal type of person. And I have burnt out several times, and it's harder to come back from that burnout.
Mhm.
And the reason why I wanted to have that little conversation about the cycles is because that innate badass confident self that you're talking about, I'm her 2 weeks out of the year. The
Yeah,
third week, I'm on the couch watching Hallmark, and the other week, I'm in the red tent, leave me alone. So you have to find out the ebbs
right.
and flows so that you can step into that peak optimal version of yourself. So,
Yeah, and I love that too, because it's really about harnessing the energy, and you can get more shit done in those two
yeah.
weeks, right? And then get that time on the couch, and then get that time in the
Yeah.
red tent. And it's like, rather than whipping yourself through those rough times, and then you don't have as much going into the other parts. So then you're just kind of dragging ass, so to speak.
Oh,
So yeah, I love that, Kim. I'm so glad that you do that for yourself too. It's just so important.
yes. You see why she's here, y'all. You'll see why she's here. So grab that assessment. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with Ashleigh. Real quick, what's the next step after the assessment? Do they get a call with you? How does
Yeah.
that
Oh, I'm
work?
so glad you asked that. So, at the end of the assessment, if you're interested, there's an opportunity to hop on a call with me if you want to talk through any of those pieces and see how or if I might be able to help you with that. If not, I'm connected to so many fabulous coaches. So I'm always about just helping people along with their journey. The other piece is I have a Halt the Hustle workshop. So, like you said, so many of us just get caught in that over operating, and honestly, it's my default too. So I get it. And you really have to understand like, what is that pattern? How does that show up? And how do I pattern interrupt to get back into my flow? And so, yeah, so those are the two things that you can do at the end of the assessment if it's striking a fancy.
There's nobody better to have that conversation with. It's who's been there, who's done it, who's a safe space. And that is definitely Ashleigh. And I love the fact that you've used the term over operating. I've never heard that before. And I think
Mm,
so many people today are just so quick to slap the overwhelm word on it when
yeah.
it's over operating. So I
Mhm.
love that. I love you. Thank you so much for your contribution and your time today.
Oh,
And
Kim, thank you
friends,
so much.
take that assessment, take that call with her. Why would you not? And Halt the Hustle workshop. Either myself or Ashleigh will absolutely get you more details on that. Ashleigh, have an awesome day. Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for being
Kim. You
here.
too.
Thank you.
Bye.